This all happened back in 2018. I was living and working in Melbourne, Australia, and had just moved into this small, older house in a suburb called Glenmore. The house itself was fine, nothing special, but it was the neighbor that was the problem. The house next door was a total wreck. It had a rusty, faded blue door, weeds growing so high they were nearly covering the windows, and a mailbox that was literally rotting off its post. My landlord told me a man lived there, but he only slept there once every few weeks. No one knew why. It was one of those local mysteries everyone just kind of accepted. For the first few weeks, everything was quiet. I was busy with my new job, trying to settle in. And honestly, I forgot about the weird, abandoned-looking house next door. That is, until one evening. I'd just gotten home from a really long, exhausting day at work. I was standing in my kitchen, making some instant noodles, when I glanced out the window towards the neighbor's house. And that's when I saw it. In one of their darkened windows, there was a pitch-black silhouette of a man just standing there, staring directly at me. It was so sudden and so creepy that I froze. My heart started pounding. Before I could even process what was happening or even think about ducking out of sight, there was a knock on my front door. A loud, sharp knock. 3 times. I crept over to the door, my heart in my throat. I looked through the peephole. Standing on my porch was a man. He was tall, gaunt, with greasy, stringy hair. He just stood there, completely still. After a few seconds of silence, he spoke. His voice was flat, totally devoid of any emotion. "I am your neighbor." That's all he said. Something about the way he said it, the deadness in his eyes, it just felt wrong. A cold dread washed over me. I didn't answer. I didn't make a sound. I just stood there, holding my breath, waiting for him to leave. After what felt like an eternity, he finally turned and walked away, disappearing back into the shadows of his overgrown yard. I locked every lock I had and spent the rest of the night with the lights on, jumping at every little sound. The next morning, I was still on edge, but I told myself I was probably overreacting. I needed to get to work. So I took a deep breath and opened my front door, and I nearly fainted. Scrawled across the wall right next to my door, in huge, messy letters, was my name, Daniel. It was written in thick, black paint, and it was still wet, dripping down the wall like blood. My stomach dropped. How did he know my name? I hadn't told anyone my name. I felt violated and incredibly scared. I immediately called my landlord, who basically told me to just ignore it and that the guy was harmless. Harmless. This didn't feel harmless. Things got even weirder after that. A few days later, I came home from work and noticed something different about the house next door. The waist-high weeds were gone. The entire yard had been freshly cut, trimmed with an almost obsessive precision. It was completely out of character for a house that looked like it had been abandoned for years. It felt like a message, like he was showing me he was there, that he was watching. The real terror, though, came one weekend morning. I was woken up by the most deafening, terrifying noise. It was the roar of a chainsaw, and it was right outside my front door. It was so loud the whole house seemed to vibrate. I jumped out of bed, my mind racing. I crept to the front door, my hands shaking. Through the peephole, I could see him. It was the neighbor. He was standing on my porch, revving the chainsaw, the blade just inches from my door. Then, while still holding the roaring chainsaw, he started knocking. That same, flat, insistent knock. He just stood there 4 minutes, knocking and revving the engine. I was paralyzed with fear. I yelled through the door, my voice trembling, that I was calling the police. He didn't react. He didn't stop. He just kept revving the chainsaw and knocking. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, the noise stopped. I heard him walk away. I called the police, frantic, trying to explain what had just happened. When they finally showed up, they went over to his house. They came back a little while later and told me the same thing my landlord had, that he was harmless. They said he had some issues, but he wouldn't actually hurt anyone. They couldn't do anything. I felt completely alone and unprotected. How was a man threatening me with a chainsaw harmless? The next few weeks were a living nightmare. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside, sent me into a panic. I was constantly looking over my shoulder, checking my windows, making sure my doors were locked. I knew I had to get out of there. I couldn't live like that. I broke my lease, paid the fee, and packed up my things as fast as I could. I didn't care about the money. I just needed to escape. On the day I was finally moving out, as my friend and I were loading the last box into the car, I made the mistake of looking over at the neighbor's house one last time, and there he was. He was standing in the same window as before, the window where I first saw his silhouette. But this time, I could see him clearly. He was smiling, a wide, unsettling grin, and in his hands, he was holding a dead possum by its tail. Blood was dripping from it, staining the windowsill. He just stood there, smiling, holding that dead animal, watching me leave. I got in the car, and I never looked back. I still get chills thinking about that house, that blue door and that smile. Thanks for listening to my story. If you have any creepy neighbor stories of your own, I'd love to hear them in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe for more. Stay safe out there.